This is John Goodman. I am recording this video in November of 2022, and that's important because in November of 2022, mortgage interest rates on 30-year fixed interest rate mortgages are about something like 6.5%. Now, for somebody my age, that doesn't seem that high, but it's worth noting because we are talking about seller carry financing. And seller carry financing is coming back in vogue. And the reason it's coming back in vogue is because over the decades since the late 1980s, interest rates have trended down. And in the recent past, we have seen the rates for 30-year fixed mortgages get below 3%. So mortgage rates at 6% seem historically high and have hence made it seem more desirable to sellers to carry financing. That's for a few reasons. One of the reasons is 6% return sounds pretty juicy. Is it juicy? Well, we're in a market right now where inflation is 7-8% or so. So is 6% that juicy? I don't know about that. But psychologically, it seems juicy. Another reason it's valuable to sellers is because it's a way to sell their property. It may be carrying the financing, maybe what they need to do to sell the property. So one other legal thing to notice, and that is real estate brokers who are my age or so remember a time where real estate brokers used to write contracts that called for seller carry financing and would address all the terms of seller carry financing. What was the interest rate and when did the loan balloon and what amortization were the payments based on? Was there a default interest rate? If there was one, when did it kick in? What was the default interest rate? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Real estate brokers, at least in the state of Colorado, were very used to addressing those terms and negotiating those terms in the contract. However, the financial crisis and the laws that emerged out of that greatly tamped down on what real estate brokers could do. And this hasn't been a big issue for a while because there hasn't been much seller carry financing for a while. But as I record this video in November of 2022, seller carry financing, it's coming back, baby. So it's worth a refresher. Can real estate brokers still write contracts that call for seller carry financing? And the answer in Colorado, at least, is heck yes, you can. You just can't address all those terms that you used to address. What can you address? What can you address about seller carry financing? Well, in the state of Colorado, we know you can address one term of seller carry financing. And it's not any term of seller carry financing. It's a specific term of seller carry financing. And that is the term of the amount of the loan. You can address the amount of the loan. And the way you know you can address the amount of the loan in Colorado is there's a place in the chart in section 4 of the Real Estate Commission approved contract. The chart in section 4 is the purchase price and what's the amount of the earnest money and what's the amount of the financing, and it all totals up, and one column is supposed to match the other one. But in that chart, you can look at it yourself, there is a place for the contract to address the amount of seller carry financing. So you're thinking, well, John, addressing the amount is better than nothing. But how do we get to the closing table? What is the process for addressing the interest rate and all the other terms of the seller carry financing? And that process is addressed in section 4.7 of the Real Estate Commission approved contract. And essentially, the contract is contingent upon the seller and buyer coming together on the terms of the seller carry financing on or before a date. I'm not going to walk you, this is a YouTube video, so I'm not going to get too nerdy. You can look at section 4.7 yourself, but let me tell you what the highlights are. There is a date in section 4.7 by which the one party, the buyer or the seller, needs to propose the terms of the seller carry financing. Interestingly, that date does not make it into the chart in section 3 of the Real Estate Commission Approved Contract. It's a date that's in the body of the contract. What does make it into the chart in section 3, the dates and deadlines chart, is the date by which the parties must agree to the terms of seller carry financing. Otherwise, the transaction terminates. And then what's addressed in section 4.7 is you get to check a box. Who's gonna propose the initial terms? You know, who's gonna take the initiative in proposing the initial terms? You could check a box, the seller is going to propose the terms, or you could check a box that the buyer is going to propose the terms. That's in section 4.7.1 of the Real Estate Commission Approved Contract. Well, what do? Which box do you check? Well, it's case by case, but I would suggest that, for example, if a seller is marketing the property, indicating that the seller is willing to carry the financing, and if a buyer makes an offer to buy the property and wants to buy it with seller carry financing, the seller has given this some thought. You check the box, the seller will propose the initial terms of the seller carry financing. If the property is not being marketed with seller carry financing, but a buyer proposes that the seller carry the financing, then I would suggest you check the box, the buyer, and the buyer bears the burden of carrying the burden of hiring a lawyer to put the terms of the seller carry financing together. The theme is that a license as a real estate broker does not allow you to negotiate, or draft the terms of seller carry financing, let alone the actual documents, the promissory note and deed of trust for seller carry financing. Section 4.7 of the contract has a sentence that says broker should not, this is your regulator waving its finger at you, broker should not prepare or advise the parties on the specifics of financing, including whether or not a party is exempt from certain restrictions under Dodd-Frank. Okay, that's all I have to say. You, as a broker, can put deals together that call for seller carry financing. You can address the one term of the amount of the financing, and then there's a process for the buyer and seller, perhaps with the help of a lawyer, perhaps with the help of somebody else who has a MLO, mortgage loan origination license. They, the parties, put together the terms of the seller carry financing. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a complex world. Be careful out there.